Welcome to Schelstraete On Tour, Future of Equine Sports, the podcast where we explore key developments that are shaping in the international equine sports. Each episode features in-depth conversations with leading voices within the equestrian industry. I'm your co-host, Piotr Wawrzyniak, a partner and attorney at Schelstraete Equine Law. I'm together with Luc Schelstraete.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Luc Schelstraete, and I'm happy that we have now our second podcast with the very well-known Edwin Enzerink. He is a veterinary surgeon, dierenarts, as they say in the Netherlands. Welcome, Edwin. We are really interested to hear you, to talk with you about the developments in sports, but for the people that don't know you that well at this moment, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, professionally?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Edwin Enzerink is my name. I'm a veterinarian based in Zomeren Veterinary Clinic, where we have a referral equine clinic where we were a team of ours doing sport horses, but we have a surgery facility as well as a first opinion clinic with a small ambulatory practice. As the clinic has grown from a farm animal veterinary clinic that has been specialized in all different animals like poultry, pigs, cows, and horses. It started in the beginning that all the vets did all the animals, but this was one of the first clinics that actually did specialize their vets in different animals to do a better job to know more of their specific animals. And even nowadays we put it further, like I'm in our equine section. I do more the orthopedic work, the sport horses and the surgery, while other of our vets do more the reproductive work or the internal medicine. So we run the veterinary clinic with all facets where we help each other, and that makes also my job easy. I started my career as a vet student in Utrecht University. I worked there for 4 years after my study. At that time, under Professor Barneveld, I did a lot of work also together with Professor Kees Dick, who was one of my coaches who trained me, with a lot of knowledge about people, but as well about horses. Not only reading X-rays, but as well he had a very good clinical view and a good eye, and like together with famous vets like Professor Fleurier and Barneveld, he had been trained at that time. I was already looking a lot abroad, spent time, and I was happy to spend time with Ian Wright in England for a few weeks, a few months, to learn more about thoroughbreds, especially surgery. I learned a lot of him with surgery. I spent a lot of time with colleagues in America, just going there, seeing them struggle with the same problems, but learn a lot about sport horses.
Okay, but Edwin, as usual, you are very, very humble. But what you didn't tell to the public is that you, maybe not everybody knows you, but you are also the team vet of the Dutch Dressage team. You served on the team during the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro and Tokyo.
No, only Tokyo.
Tokyo and Paris.
I started in 2018, and my first year when we went to Tryon.
Oh yes,
to
the
the
World
Equestrian
Games.
Yes. It was a kind of challenging situation and challenging first start. But okay, and then we went to Tokyo, Herning, World Equestrian Games, and Paris, and years ago. Yeah, I think in 2017 I started with on the eventers, the 3-day eventers for the first year, and then I switched as a team veterinarian to the dressage in 2018.
Okay. And still doing the job and looking forward towards Los Angeles, I suppose.
Yeah. Looking forward, but okay, we have we had a kind of few fences to take this year to the World Equestrian Games in Aachen. That will be the first goal.
Of course.
To get selected for the Olympics, but okay, we will make that.
You think it's going to be difficult?
It's always difficult, but we're going to make that.
Okay, we're going to make it happen. Okay, also, you're also specialized in surgery. You said you do surgeries, you do examinations, but actually you hold a degree, postgraduate degree in equine surgery, right?
Yeah, we at the University of Utrecht I start my resident. At that time it called different, but as a resident to be trained, and then in 2021 I was able. In 2001, sorry, I was able to pass the ECVS, the European College of Veterinary Surgeons, the exam for large animals. Because I was able to specialize in that part of the job.
Yes. And what are the other passions in your life separate from being a vet?
My biggest passion is horses, and I think there it ends as well a little bit. I think my life is horses. We have a small breeding farm back home where we breed sport horses, and I really enjoy having quite a few in the sport. And at the moment we managed to have a few at the highest level.
Can you mention what horses are there that are the highest?
Show jumpers, right?
That's my breeding program started with dressage and show jumper a little bit half. But to be honest, I was not so successful with my dressage horses. I recently, a few years ago, I did kind of a hustle. I've been really critical to it. And now I have just a few dressage horses. I try to build it up again because I want to be with my dressage horses as successful as with my jumpers. But I stopped with a few lines because they were not healthy enough and were not successful enough. And now I only breed with one line. And I just last year bought a new broodmare to start up a new line. Also a bit new type of bit fitting with the new type of horse that I think
tell us a little bit more about the line, but maybe people are interested in.
I have one broodmare is the full sister of Gladiator from Geert-Jan Rateland. That came out of the mother of Toots from Imke Schellekes. It's also a Totulas, the same as Gladiator. Out of the Havidov mare, the mother of Toots. And there I have a few offspring of, and then that's again one I have now put in training. So we are back to try to be to put up a successful line, and I think it looks really promising. And the other line I did last year was able to by one of my colleagues who's team veterinarian of Sweden. He hinted me of an offspring he did buy, and he brought me in contact with the breeder of Cassidy, of Artrup's guards Cassidy, and I bought a full sister of it. And hopefully this year we get a foal of that. So I try to start up my
the new breeding operation in dressage.
Okay. And my jumpers, we've been a bit more successful. I have now a few from the breeding line. That's out of a sister of Chili Willy from Philipparts. That one, the mare Cinderella, that was owned formerly by Double H Farm. Then Peter Wild did compete with it. First, McLean Ward did compete with it, and then Peter Wild did compete with it, and I was able to with the present with the owner at that time, Missy Clark, to set up a breeding line that we have quite a few horses successful in. Like this breeding line was Sinka, who was in the final of Tokyo, and Peter did breed at that time with it. He's as a breeder of it. And then I took over that breeding line, and I've won 160 mare out of it. Grace Kelly, that Joy Lammers rides. And now the horse Cool Grey is I have under saddle with Mario Wilson Fernandez, and hopefully he can select himself for Aachen this year. That's the goal. Of it, all the horses we have together, that's Kraftpatzer is a Carrera. It's from a different breeding line.
Okay.
And I have another breeding line that's out with the line of Raamville van Tanny Zeidler. I have the same breeding line, and I have we produced already from the mare Valencia. She has I think she was retired from the sport as a 9-year-old because of an injury, and I could take it over from American owners that we did start breeding with them together, and they were not so interested in breeding, so I took over the mare and the offspring. And we've been quite successful. The first horse that's been on the top level is Lola from Hilary Scott that I did breed.
So you must have many horses.
I don't think it's a small breeding operation.
That's
what you said back home.
Back home.
But, can you be compared with Mr. Greef, the veterinarian?
No.
He had many horses.
So Jan Greef has his breeding farm a little bit bigger, and I think he's been more successful. We keep it a bit.
But do you also have the ambition to own approved KWPN or Hanoverian approved stallions? Is that something that you try to achieve?
I had, but there was I had one approved 2 years ago.
Yes.
But last year that had an accident and an injury, and that's not.
The stallion couldn't cover anymore.
He's not with us anymore. But,
okay.
But we for sure we're gonna try again.
Yeah, but you have a full service life as a veterinarian. You breed the horses.
Yeah.
Then you take care that they are being trained. Then you can organize the pre-purchase examinations. We didn't talk about that, but you also do the PPEs. And then you can offer the management of the horses, because that's also what you do, sports management. And then when the horses compete, you are there to assist the combination and the horse and the arena, because you are one of the leading veterinarians involved in the Dutch Federation. So it's a true passion. It's not just a part of it.
Yeah, it's a true passion, and I enjoy all the facets. So even getting a full-born or...
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the pre-purchase examinations. We, of course, represent many horse dealers or sellers that sell one horse at a particular time. And they always complained about these very difficult veterinarians. No horse will pass a vet check anymore. And what are they doing? They're ruining my business. And you, as a very experienced horseman, you could say, you know that an X-ray is important, but a horse that jumps 160, you don't jump with the X-ray, but you jump with the horse. Can you understand what people are saying and considering on the impact of the pre-purchase examinations per today, and that deals don't go through, etc., etc.?
Yeah, but okay, there are a lot of facets of pre-purchase exams. Like if we go back to, if I have tomorrow a pre-purchase exam planned, it all depends on which is the client, how's the situation, if that, and that makes it sometimes totally different. Yes. The approach in one pre-purchase exam is the other, although the outcome will be different. It can even be different in the same horse. I must say, I have one client, if I vetting a horse and I call him after clinical, say, but the horse is a little bit lame this, or I feel that, then immediately I will have 3 videos how amazing the horse are jumping, and I should look at them, and they for sure want to go on the pass. And then that's I like, because it's one of my clients. He's really passionate, but I always that's nice people to
can
work
understand,
with. But it can be totally different in another situation, that people
Yes.
if I think the horse is nice, only he's a little bit off, but he has for whatever reason, and I continue with it, making the X-rays, and then I send it all to my clients abroad, and then they afterwards will call me and say, how you can proceed with when the horse is has a small comment, and you still continue making all the costs on the X-ray. It's
But we
really
see many horses that we know professional of that allegedly never passed or didn't pass a certain exam, were not sold, but jump at the Olympics very well. Yeah. And that's what we tell our clients. And I have one example. I owned a horse that I sold to a Dutch guy, and you vetted that horse. You will not remember it. But then the guy called me and said, your horse didn't pass. He said, how can that happen? No, because I wanted. And then we go back to Professor Dick. He was the guy that developed the scale. And that particular buyer said, I only want once on the X-rays and not once two. And the horse had every detail only once, but one detail 1 to 2. So the horse was very good. Clinically it was good, but for that observation of that particular client, it didn't pass. So it's all about communication. Yeah. But you can understand that the vetting in general is a big issue. And also juridically, it's getting more and more an issue. Also, given the recent Court of Appeal decision that was issued last week in the Netherlands, in which the judge said, the judge in the appeal ruled that a veterinarian that is offered the historical details of a horse, which the vetting horse didn't want to look at, and the horse, of course, 2 months later was terribly lame. And then the judge said, yes, when you do a pre-purchase examination, you should have a look at the history of the horse and collect more details, like, is the horse continuously doing sports, or is there a break? How do you think about that when you hear this?
Yeah, there are a lot of points in this question, because I cannot fully oversee the mentioned case, but a few points to that. The judge and also the witness, expert witness, they always look with backside information. Like the horse, they look at a horse everything went wrong because it was a court case, and then they look back what could be found in a preparedness exam. Wow, we as vets study 180 degree different. We have a horse that's competing. Competing nicely. We have a client that's really willing to buy that horse for all the reasons there, or it's an investment they want to like to do, or it's a horse they want to buy for their daughter. Yes. And we look at it then, and we make a report that then we should try on all the veterinary like inventory of the horse we should look at, and then put a paper, make a weighted decision. But first, we should put all points that are we have to mention, like if the horse is lame or whatever, all the points, and then we do some imaging, and we need to combine that to make a weighted risk. Yes. And we should have discussed that with the owner and or the buyer or client, and so the client actually can try to judge if they, with this type of risk, they wanna the horse is so valued to them that they're gonna buy it. But that's not the ideal situation, because you mentioned before that they're like horse dealers often want have such a clean report as possible, because it's easy for them to sell the horse weight, but that's not always the case. We more and more going over, and that's how I try to do, maybe, to make an inventory of the horse, put out the risk, and put the risk over to the client that want to buy it. They can wait if they. Sometimes you have quite a bit of risk, and then people say, "Do we have to buy it?" So if it's I don't know exactly the quality of the horse, because I cannot judge how good the horse is. But if it's an Olympic horse that you with Olympic qualities that you can buy cheap, then maybe you you can weigh that till the risk you have, and as well the value and the money the people have to spend.
I understand that that's tailor-made discussion, tailor-made conclusions, but the major question that I try to ask you is, do you agree that a veterinary surgeon that is performing a PPE should look into the history? And then you can talk, what is the history? Should you ask for, let's say, has the horse been vetted recently? Did it pass? Or were there recent x-rays? Or was the horse lame within a certain period of time? Do you ask whether it had colic surgery, or do you discuss surgery in general? Because I just had a look at the new edition of a book that is issued by a group of veterinary specialists, led by Professor Sloot, saying that there is a seller's statement, and that helps the veterinarian to ask questions to the person that brings the horse to the vet check. So in general, do you think it should be that it's mandatory, or it's wise to ask for the history?
There are two things. I normally depends on the situation, which client who's going to buy the horse, the seller, and if I know anything about the horse as well, if it's a 3-year-old or is a 10-year-old. But in cases that I need to know more, I try at least to look at the showing record of the horse, or in the passport, or on horse telex, or on the FAI, what I can get. But I always try out to put that question also to the buyer, because I think they should actually do that research. They know, but I'm often very surprised that if I approach them, my buyers, to it like, there's a year out in the results. Is there any reason? And then they not, often they didn't even ask for it, or sometimes there's a good reason for it. And so that's sometimes of research I do, but I cannot. We recently had at on our big event in Jumping Amsterdam. We did a sport horse congress. We had that discussion, and a few vets say, okay, but I try to watch also on the more expensive horses some videos of it show jumping, and I sometimes do. But I to do all my preparedness exams, to do a whole review of that, it's a bit beyond the point. In my exam, I always start off with a few questions, and I mean, it's maybe wise to let the seller make a statement and write it on paper. But a few things are asked: has there been any known surgery? Is the horse cribbing, weaving? Is there anything important to notice if there's any significant lameness? And it's always surprised what answers you get, and it not always fit with the reality.
So what? And actually, without criticizing maybe this judgment, in general, in the Netherlands, we have two kind of obligations. So on one hand is the obligation of the buyer to do his or her investigation, but on the other hand, you also have the duty to disclose information that is relevant. And I don't know, I don't know the judgment very good. I didn't read it very thoroughly. But the question is, like saying, okay, you have the file, go through it. Is it? Can you discharge yourself as the veterinarian of the seller by saying it, or you should say, okay, listen, maybe you should have a look because the horse was lame 2 weeks ago or whatever, right? I mean, what is prevailing in this situation? Your duty to investigate or your duty to disclose? And I think it's a difficult discussion.
It's a difficult discussion, but generally in the Netherlands, but also in Germany, when the seller has particular information, he is obligated to disclose that, and that's more important than the general possibility that the buyer has to investigate. Because if you know a particular thing, that's not likely that the buyer will ask on that. But that's something purely juridical. But without veterinarians, we cannot interpret because the horse can't talk. That is our problem.
Yes, and you can't ride on the X-rays, as we said.
But yes, but in some cases it helps that information as well to advise the client that's doubting the veterinary information. But the problem is often that the buyer is maybe the rider is buying it, or there's investor group behind it, or a granddad or whoever. That is really, they sometimes really struggle with handling the information. Recently we had a case that who had colic surgery, and I think at the end, it was 4 years ago, I think that risk was, for me, graded as really small. Of course, there's some extra risk to it, but it's small. And that deal, I don't know all of the details of it. That deal at the end didn't went through. But I think that horse would be the most suitable horse for this rider. But the deal didn't went through because people, there's something with the person that had to put up the money. They was still afraid of the information. Well, I think they couldn't fully oversee the information, and that makes it sometimes difficult.
But do you think, Edwin, that the way now these examinations are organized, how will it develop in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it has been. It's always a bit of struggle around people's exams, and even between vets, we struggle in that discussion where we should go, and everybody has a little bit of his own approach, although the differences are not so big. But I think the problem is also we get more and more information about things like example, the open up the can of worms of neck X-rays. We learned over the last 10 years much more about it. We do recognize more diseases or more problems in horses from neck X-rays. So we point more things out. But okay, we cannot, based on the X-ray, not always predict the clinical point of view. Or the clinical signs, if they're gonna be or not, if a horse, of course I see still every day, or not every day, but frequent enough horses that do really well in the sport, but not so nice neck X-rays as to say with back X-rays. But it doesn't mean that they're no point not to suitable. Make or the information. It's important because we see also, and it looks more frequent, or we recognize it more, or the problems are more. But we see frequent enough horses with clinical significant problems from neck or back that are difficult to solve. Yeah. So,
But still, in your assessment, Edwin, but that's just what I wonder as a lawyer when you have this owner in front of you and being the seller, and you have the rider and you have the buyer who maybe is also attending the pre-purchase examination, and you have all that information. How are you dealing with this? You are still more trusting your intuition and your gut feeling, or you are trying to process all the information and try to figure out what they are all saying?
Yeah, that's always difficult, as you said, because people tend to, when they want to sell something, they pretend it's always a little bit more nice than the reality is. But okay, we cannot. I sometimes think I don't want to be the police agent for the buyer, because that's not my job. I try to do a veterinary. I try to address the veterinary findings and issues, and try to make point out the significance. But okay, it's also good as well for me to realize who is the buyer, what's the horse going to do, if the horse is going to still act on the highest level, or is this now a schoolmaster from that the horse has maybe a bit more easy life, and maybe he can still be really functional. But okay, that's a really difficult judgment.
So actually, we can all agree that there is no one standard pre-purchase examination. It all depends on
every day
the parties, on the horse, on the findings.
Yeah. Okay. You cannot standardize, and that's making also the situation different. You cannot standardize it fully, but I think we all need to do a thorough exam and try to inform the client as good as possible without making them too scared, because that's why I do agree on that. Like I hear from other countries as well, and people will maybe excuse me as well from it, that I'm being put out too much points, and that's difficult for us to get sold by. But okay, we need to inform our clients the fair spot.
Yeah, as lawyers, Edwin, we are involved in equine cases. You know that that's what we do. And when we read the reports, and we read them all the day, every day new ones, reports from veterinarians asking us whether this is a case on non-conformity or liability. First of all, we have difficulty in reading the handwritten remarks. Nowadays, 2026, why isn't that digital and sealed and signed? And that is a question. And the second question is, And that's also the reason why we employ a veterinarian, and perhaps a second one coming up. We have more and more difficulty in the technical words being used. When you have so many remarks, and I have no problem with the number of remarks, it's what you observe. And you have to write down what you observe. But for any third party, not a veterinarian, a lawyer, or even a judge, it's very difficult to interpret what the relevance is of all this. And the job for the veterinarian is to, together with the client, what the client wants and what the management the client can offer and what the objective is in sports, it's to assess whether this is a risky purchase or not and what are the risks. So you have to write down everything. But in the end, it's about a total conclusion. Is this acceptable or not? And what can we understand from these difficult words? So we are happy that we now have a veterinarian that is able to tell our client when we do the contracting, and we need guarantees on that topic, because that's what we do. When you make when you write down there is an abnormality, but not a big risk, in my opinion, you would say, not relevant, blah, blah, blah. It's for us to draft a contract in which we bring the comfort to the client that the seller has to say, okay, we have this vet report, it's part of the contract. There is a remark on, let's say, an old tendon issue, but it's a long time ago. Then we need a guarantee. So the lawyers have to make complete what the veterinarian has assessed. But it's difficult for us because the words and the terms being used is often very, very, very difficult. So how can the people like consumer buyers, how can they understand what they can do with the purchase vetting and the document? This is what we hear all the time. I didn't understand what the report meant because when I reread it, it's too difficult. It's like you have a heart problem. You go to the specialist. You want to hear from him. You don't want to see all these imaging and blah, blah, blah. You want to hear from him, I have a problem. What can you do about it and when? So why is it so difficult?
Yeah, for me to write something that's in handwriting that's really readable for everybody is difficult because I not have so good handwriting. But that hopefully with the new vet form in Holland. In Holland, at least we have the group of horse vets did sit together and try to agree with all of us. But okay, everybody brought in their points, and we tried to make a vet report that everybody can work with.
Yes.
And of course, if you ask me or somebody else, you would say it should go more left or more right. But we end up with this. At least we end up with one form that we agreed on. If you compare it with other countries like Belgium, that doesn't have such a thing. I think it's a good thing that we agreed. Although you could, everybody could bring in his points, and there has been made a decision at the end or a compromise.
Yes.
At least the next step is and that I would hopefully in the next month that will be implemented. That at least the form is from handwriting to digital. A few of their vet practices in Holland work already with a digital system. But for us, is that in our clinic is that not possible yet till the new format is coming up. We want to kind of wait on that, so that will be helpful.
Yes.
It will be still that if you compare that like with some of the reports I see from my colleagues from America, for example, or England, or especially from America, they write down much more information. They make sometimes whole pages. I think we made a decision in Holland not to go that route because that gives a lot of information that people we normally put on the significant parts will be noted in tried in short sentences.
Yes.
But okay, like in some situations for me sometimes as well, I try to make my preparedness exams to advise a client. The client is paying me for advice, and I try to end up to give them advice which risk they can encounter in this horse, or if there's no risk,
yes.
and to make them kind of advise I think they should buy it or not.
Yes.
Sometimes difficult that you don't know the client, you don't know the totally history, and I cannot oversee what money is involved and how much risk a person can take. They have to. That's their decision. But sometimes I point that out, depending on.
And this is a good, interesting point that you bring up, because we as a team at our firm, we had a few times suggested that the veterinarian should know the amount involved, and according the amount, a little bit German system, that according the amount, the financial compensation for the job is high or a little bit lower. I mean, if I would vet a horse for 100,000, I could say that the cost price for a vetting 1,000, 1,500 is acceptable. But with a higher and increasing purchase amount involved, the risk, the contractual risk for the veterinarian is also getting bigger, because there is always a liability possibility. There's always a possibility that the client of the veterinarian years after or 6 months after is not happy with the report. And so we suggested once that when you get a bigger compensation, you can do a more extensive vetting. And when you have a bigger compensation, you are able to pay a higher insurance fee to the insurance company. So then there will be a higher insurance if something goes wrong. And of course, the people that we were discussing this with, you would say, okay, but then you go to my colleague and they will say, no, the horse is a 50,000 horse, but in reality it's 1 million. But if you make part of the purchase agreement that buyer and seller confirm that it's 50 or 1 million, and the premium is in accordance with, it limits liability if they are not taking this seriously and giving you an incorrect number to prevent a higher salary. Would that be an idea?
No, it's the German system. They have it like that, and I did understand from the German colleagues that they are happy with it, because it limits their, and it makes more clear if the horse is a higher value, that the higher invoice they're gonna send will cover their insurance fees. But okay, in Holland there's no insurance company that want to work like that. So it's two things to it. If you make such a system, then you have to have an insurance company that works in the same way. I prefer not that I really know what amounts is it, because there's the other setback, like in an England system, that sometimes veterinarians do think that for a certain amount they said the horse cannot pass because it's not worth the value for the money. And I think I don't want to judge the horses on the value if they're worth or not, because I cannot judge it.
No, but that should not be part of the job. No. But I believe in it, because we as lawyers, we have the case law on this topic. When the hourly rate is high, you can expect more expertise. When the compensation is higher, you expect more. You cannot accept liability for millions on a 1,000 euro examination. I mean, this is the juridical part. But okay, I think we discussed very detailed the pre-purchase examination. Let's talk a bit about horse welfare. It's our assessment that close to the Olympic Games in Paris, the number of people involved in shouting and addressing all riders and national federations and judges and the FEI, that horseback riding is something that should not take place. It was a big number, and there was a famous case, not a famous, but a well-known case just before the Olympics. But we also have the idea that after the Olympics, it's slowed down a bit, and not so many situations, neither in Aachen or whatever place. Last year was a calm year compared to the year before. Is that correct?
Yeah, I not fully agree, because of course, like in Paris, there the tension was immediately high, and just before Paris, for several reasons. We know there's a lot of facts to it. For like on shows, the horse welfare. I think the opinion of people outside the horse world, then you have people that are real critical and people that maybe don't care so much, or people that have a quick opinion. I think we should try to address it better, to inform the people that better, how we, not only we enjoy the horse sport, but the horses as well enjoy their sport as well. I think that's an important point.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people that are not into horse sport, and I can understand, don't have that information. So we try from our sport, we should try to bring that message a little bit better out. At the time of in Paris, we had a lot of stress at that time because of the different reason. There was put a lot of attention to it. And I think even as well, we going back to the point that there is more people more addressing the dressage riders as the jumpers and the other. But there was like in the situation around Paris, everybody was anxious, and stewards were put with a lot of pressure by for also a little bit unknown reasons, and that. Luckily, if we go to Crozet, like the European Championship last year, that was much more relaxed. Still, people were searching a little bit how to look at things. I think that the pressure is a little bit off, but I think as well, and I put it out in as well in discussion with the FEI as well recently on a veterinary congress as well, that we should look more at horse experience, horse knowledge of the stewards. And I think they're looking much too much. Stewards are looking too much to pictures what they're being told, and not looking at the horse. If the horse, like for example, we have a team horse that's really fresh and eager to work, and if the rider starts riding it, then she needs to hold it a little bit, otherwise it will run off because the horse is so eager and so happy to work. And then of course the neck gets a little bit short, and then if stewards look at the picture and think, okay, this is too short and come on, run up, they don't look at that horse because they see an eager horse that's happy and working, and the rider try to has to hold the horse a little bit, but it's try to flow off the tension a little bit, and it's a real nice picture to look at. And then you have stewards too coming up and think, but this not fit the.
So there we go again. As with the pre-purchase examination, there is no standard; it's all relative.
But isn't it?
But
so?
then on the same moments, you say, I've been in a situation that I think horse has been. There's been too much tension. There were things going on that I would not like to see, and then the stewards there was not in their normal guidebook, and then the steward was had not horsemanship enough to step up and then go to the rider and said, you better don't do that. And then you see nowadays, and that's the good thing in it, that nowadays you see other riders are going maybe after their training, go to the rider and say, we saw that, we don't like it, and I think there's a better in between a horse sport, the more awareness that people try to correct or try to say something to improve the horse welfare. I think that the horse welfare has been a lot improved.
It's about the definition of what a steward should do, and in our opinion, it's not only the horse welfare but also the rider welfare, because the rider is riding in the warm-up arena and in the arena, and everybody has a judgment on that. So everybody has an opinion, but basically, if the steward says this is all okay, it is also the steward that should explain to the audience that addresses the steward, because that is what is happening. In Aachen, you can see it. There are 2 or 3 activists standing next to the steward, instructing the steward to do something, but it's then the steward that should explain to the people involved that what they see is nothing wrong with it. Black and white talking, and we should interpret more professionally, also the riders and the trainers and also the FEI, but also the stewards, that what we see is okay. But
or try to explain more.
Yes.
Like if you have a stallion that is fresh and trying to attack or going to that, and the rider has to correct, then steward, they should see that and think, okay, that's a good thing. But okay, that's just a quick correction to avoid that there are bad things happening or whatever. That should not be like, oh, he did this, like looking at small, but more interpreted what's happening, and then maybe explain as well to the people around.
Yeah.
And then that way, hopefully, we getting forward. But I think nowadays, the way of riding, everybody works on it, but much more, like you see as well in our own, like in the Dutch team as well. People, it's a thing that has been discussed, and you see a different type of riding, and the judges as well. Try to mark that, to give better points for the ones that be more relaxed. But also, you see the bad thing to it, that some different postures or horses that are actually relaxed but are having a short neck from themselves, or sometimes getting not enough points.
But also the judges need to be trained, because when you talk about preventing a short neck, it often goes with less submission, with less power in the engine. I mean, we all know that when we could take the reins very short, horse will show a lot of action, but that's not in balance. That is not what we want. But the judges should give high marks, in our opinion, high marks to those combinations that are able to do it nice, and they still get nothing more than 7. So. But
like when the horse has a short neck, then the rider should not be accused of it, because it's how it is.
But people have 75% at 4 or 5 stars with short neck, so it's not consequent. But the idea, as you said, that dressage has all the attention, we assess, because we see many disciplinary cases, and many cases nowadays are settled with administrative sanctions. But we have the impression there are more show jumping issues, or issues at show jumping, than at dressage.
Yeah, but I also think that it has something to do with the number of participants, because there are more people participating in show jumping.
That's correct.
Much more
in dressage. So.
Yeah, but there are not so many dressage cases as a whole.
That's true.
And I think it's time that the FEI illustrates this, because they are very active. Many yellow cards, they are very active, and that's good that they are active.
But luckily now, on the more recent show, the pressure on the stewards and the pressure they put on the riders is less. But sometimes you come across people that like horses warming up, and then a steward is interfering, or just making sometimes a positive comment, like, give the horse a sugar or whatever, but they forget that the rider is freely concentrating, and when the steward comes up, it can, to really make for the rider, especially if you have like children or the younger, it disturbs them really the concentration. So they should be aware of that.
So talking about new developments, we hear about suggestions to the FEI. I can mention a few, and I would like to hear your comment on that. One of the first requests from the people is that the warming up time of a horse should be limited. I mean, you see show jumping or dressage riders taking an hour, 1.5 hours. That should be limited in time. What do you think? Would that be fair to have a ruling on this from the FEI?
Yeah, we come back like on Piotr's point. That every horse and every rider is different in this case, and I think it comes up, in my opinion, back to horsemanship. If a horse is trained 1.5 hours with a lot of tension, that should be a steward's job to interfere. But if somebody makes a choice to warm up a horse with a lot of walk and just gentle for 1.5 hours, I think that's not a point. That's not a bad thing. But some horses need that, or some riders need that. They have a different approach. But it comes back to horsemanship, and I think to make a certain time schedule on it, a certain time you have to warm up. If the choice be made to do that, then you have to make it long enough that people that really want to have a long warm up on a relaxed way could do it. But if people putting a lot of pressure for 45 minutes is also not good.
Yeah, but 45 is not the situation. It's 1.5 hours, more than an hour, full power piaffe passage all the time. Flying changes 10 times, the diagonal 20 times. That's what you see. And so my question is, should that be limited? Should there be a ruling on that?
Yeah, but it's difficult. Yeah, I think it's good to
difficult
put
how
it
to
in
do
that
it,
they overtrain or overwarm up. But I think that could not be limited. In my opinion, it should not be limited with only a time limit. Yeah.
How is the breeding going to be in 10 years when we talk like 220, 235? What do you think? What would be the bloodlines that will be dominating the sport, show jumping and dressage?
Yeah, that's a difficult question because I puzzle myself as well in my own breeding program. We use embryo transfer, I use exhibit as well. I'm also back to the idea that horses, that young mares, before they go into sport, can have their own foal. I like it as well. And then I still think like the old... I came across when I worked in England because during my time on a university, I worked a few months in England and did a lot of thoroughbred work as well, thoroughbred breeding, and came across the few famous thoroughbred breeders that they were really convinced that horse and their breeding program is different, but that young mares produce better offspring at the end than older mares. And going back to it, I think I see that still back in our sport and our breeding. So I think in the next 10 years, we will better to define if the more breeding we nowadays do, the new breeding like with ICSI or from older mares, is gonna compete or against just using young mares and new breeding line, new stallions. And I think myself that the old-fashioned breeding is coming back a bit more. That we use
so?
Yeah, I think a bit more. And hoping that as well, because for the smaller breeders and as well the passionate like farm people who are breeding it has been struggling years in breeding for them, and hopefully that comes back a bit more, and that we in 10 years are more wise and use that more than if I pick up ICSI. Although I've been my horses that are in the sport, part of them are produced with ICSI, and they're successful and doing well. I do not agree on some people that criticize them. I said that the foals are more ill or less more weak.
No statistics
That's not my experience as well. Although I know of the human research have been done that on EVF in people it seemed to be, but in horses is for sure not our experience. No,
But you think that it's better for the younger mares to have their own offspring before they go into the sport?
Yeah, I like it more. I like it more when I see my mares that are successful in the sport, that they had a few foals, and then we kick on with that foals, like one of my Grace Kelly. She has a few young ones that are looking really well, so that's nice to go further. Yeah. Like it's the same with I have a mare that's named Epsy. She's owned by an American, Andrew Ramsey, and that horse has had 3 foals before she went into the sport. And that has been really successful, high-level show jumpers. And I'm now breeding with her with ICSI, and I've not been so successful with it. So I think that may be putting a point. But I think in that I see a little bit of experience that maybe that mare at young age produced really good offspring, and I still try with her offspring to see if I can get the same results, but I'm struggling. But okay, I have other examples that the other way around. So I think we get more answers.
But Edwin, these mares cannot go to these young horse competitions because they are breeding.
Yeah, but I think as well the young horse, we realize more that like young horse competitions, like horses jumping and on young horses competition or dressage competitions, that we overuse them a little bit. I've been doing that as well. I think we more and more realize, especially for the real good ones, that we should save them a little bit for the long sport. Although I do recognize if mares had foals on young age, that you sometimes struggle to get them strong enough. It will take a longer time.
And the dressage is very difficult because in dressage you want to achieve a certain level. When they are 6, 7, they should be able to do a St. George. almost, and not later than 8. If you start working with them when you're 6, you're quite late.
I think most people nowadays, especially how at the moment the business is, that they start later and later with their dressage horses. So I think you still can have a foal before that. Because a lot of horses start off 4 years.
Perhaps one foal, but most of the breeders look like the stallions, how they treat the stallions. I mean, they have to do the exams. They are very well prepared. They start working with the stallions when they are 2 years old. I mean, so what you think is good for the mares, is it also good for the stallions?
Yeah, but I think nowadays you see that now in Holland as well, that we not having the exams for the stallions so young. I think more and more people realize that we have to give them a bit more time, and we should avoid breaking them, because they, especially the good ones, are so valuable that you don't want to break them.
Yeah, and that happens because when they are successful, because of the movements and the pedigree, they cover mini mares, and then you're already beginning to put pressure on.
Yeah, and that as well, I think we should realize, especially on those potential or the real good dressage stallions, if they do a lot of breeding work, and then it will be difficult to compete them as well. Yeah. And that's something that from the start we should realize, that there must be a kind of balance.
Yes.
If those ones are used for breeding, then we maybe should not have them on the same level, or so many moments that they have to present themselves. We should select the moments a little bit better.
Yes. Thank you very much, Edwin, for your wise recommendations. In our environment, in our world, there's always someone that has the last word. Even in court situations, the judge asks, is there something to add? What would you like to add, Edwin, when it comes to the future of the horse business, the equine sports? Perhaps you can give us a final idea on the best breeding combination.
Yeah, it's difficult to add the last development breeding combination, because we're always searching for it. But I think my message would be that people should, although breeders is always a lot of disappointment in, but you should take your moments from enjoy it when things are going good.
Yeah. On the road too is enjoyed.
Yeah. Enjoy the small moments or the big moments.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edwin, for these interesting insights into the equine business. That wraps the second episode of Schelstraete On Tour, Future of Equine Sports. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube for a channel for our podcast, and please follow us on the social media. Thank you very much.